Today, episode 60, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time of Politically Conscious. President Trump calls on Republicans to take over future elections. Power move or distraction as outrage grows over ICE. Calls to shut down the Department of Homeland Security intensify, and the government narrowly avoids another shutdown. Then the FBI releases the Epstein files. The real question, will there be consequences or is accountability still off limits? If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us. What's up, everybody? We on episode 60. Man, we've been rocking for a full year, man. And I got my two brothers, politically conscious, is with y'all. As if you're tired of the propaganda, you listen to us. I got Emil Bryant and brother Shelly Winters from the Shelly Winters Show. Thank y'all for holding me down for episode 60. We got some clips, so we're going to run right into it. For anybody out there, if you're a first-time watcher, we play political clips from around the internet and give it to you from both the left and the right, and I try to moderate this thing as an independent. Emil comes up from us from the left of things, so if you will, Emil, tell them quickly about yourself, and we'll introduce Shelly and get started with the clips today.
Emil Bryant, political consultant, author, speaker. And one of the reasons why I'm here is because I cannot stand propaganda. I cannot stand people who don't tell the truth. As a political consultant, I tell my candidates to tell the truth, tell it early, tell it often, because the bad news does not get better with time, and the people can handle it. More truth makes better voters. Get your truth out there.
I love it. All right, Shelly, tell them about yourself, brother, and we're going to get it started with these clips today.
Shelly Winter, host of the Shelly Winter Show, and I'm just here because Montoya pays me.
I love it. All right, brother. All right, let's get this thing started. This is something that, out of all the things that are happening, I'm going to ask you guys, is this a real thing or a distraction? I'll kind of give you that context, play this clip, and we'll start with you, Emil, after this clip for response.
On Monday, President Donald Trump called on Republicans to, quote, take over the voting in at least 15 places, re-upping his unfounded claims that undocumented immigrants illegally vote for Democrats. Trump claimed, quote, these people were brought to our country to vote, criticizing Republicans for not being tougher and tamping down on illegal voting and calling on the GOP to, quote, nationalize the voting. It's unclear what Trump meant by nationalize, but he's previously suggested the federal government should take control of election administration from state governments. Trump made the comment in an appearance on former FBI Deputy Director Dan Bongino's first podcast since he left the agency. Repeating his false claims that he was the true winner of the 2020 presidential election, Trump said, quote, we have states that are so crooked, we have states that I won that showed I didn't win. Although he lost Minnesota in all 3 presidential general elections he ran in, Trump claimed he won Minnesota 3 times, alleging it's a, quote, really rigged state, with the Somalians and a theft, referring to the welfare fraud investigation in Minnesota involving some in the Somali community. Trump also said, quote, you're going to see something in Georgia where they were able to get, with a court order, the ballots. You're going to see some interesting things coming out. Trump was referring to an FBI raid at a Fulton County, Georgia election office last week seeking 2020 ballots. Fulton County Commissioner Marvin Arrington Jr. announced Monday the county plans to sue the Justice Department to challenge the legality of the seizure and force the ballots to be returned. The Trump campaign forced a third recount of ballots in the 2020 election in Georgia and pressured state officials not to certify the results, showing Joe Biden won by 12,000 votes. Trump then lost multiple legal challenges in the state attempting to overturn the results. For more on this story, read Sarah Dorn's article on Forbes.com. On Monday, President Donald Trump called on Republicans to, quote, take...
Emil, your thoughts? I know we started out early when we first started this show. This was still an issue. And so here it is. It's back up again, still being pushed by our president and saying there's an issue still. And he highlights Minnesota. Your thoughts, brother?
You know, first of all, what's worse than a sore loser is a sore winner. But the second thing is, this is really scary for the people of Georgia and the people of Fulton County. They took the originals. They did not leave copies. They did not make copies. They took the originals and left no trail that is proper to election security. So whatever they say is in those records now is the official record because they took the official records. that is a problem. The other problem is that you have to go to the Constitution. Remember that the Constitution very clearly states in Article 1, Section 4, Clause 1, it's the state's responsibility, unless Congress intervenes, it's the state's responsibility to manage how elections are run. That is, there's nothing in there about the federal government, certainly nothing about the president or the executive branch. So you have the Constitution very clearly laying out what should happen. Very clearly, Congress has not written a law or passed a law that says anything different than what is happening in Georgia right now. Georgia was under a Republican Secretary of State, Raffensperger. So there's no reason why a Republican president would doubt a Republican in that way. He was very clear. They counted the votes by hand. They did all of the things they're supposed to do by law. So coming back at it 6 years later, really sound, or it's 5.5 years later, really sounds weird and really strange, because what it does is it puts in question the motivation of the Justice Department, not the legality of the votes, but rather the motivation of the Justice Department. It's very unusual, especially with no clear-cut evidence of fraud, that the FBI would seize the original records and not have a valid reason, i.e., some sort of charges or some sort of investigation that's ongoing. This all looks very much like the president said and the FBI did.
Let me throw it over to Shelly as our brother Kenny says, hey, he'll help me pay for you, Shelly, so I'll take the assistance. Shelly, I know you were never one of the MAGA, even though you were a MAGA supporter, you were never one of the ones pushing the voter situation. I would say to you, why is this still becoming, why do you feel like this is still an issue with the president? As Emil says, being a sore winner here. Of course, we knew that Emil would break down the legalities and the details. That's what he does. But just from your perspective, why is this being done? Because I think it heightens the fears that he's pushing to do something illegal, or even the 2028 trolling that he does with the MAGA Trump 2028 stuff. So just curious, does that not fall into that? And last thing I'll say, why would he push this after what happened on January the 6th? I think I understand why Trump would do it, but I think most presidents would have stayed away from this if something like January 6th. I think it's all related from my perspective. Your thoughts?
Well, first of all, Emil's right. The national federalized elections, I'm not for that. I'm totally against it. Remember, as a conservative, I've always been a states' rights guy. So, because that's what the Constitution says. And it says states handle. Actually, states don't really handle their own elections. Counties do. States just run, kind of confirm what the what the counties send to the state. But I'm not for federalizing elections. I think that's the worst thing we can do. One of the things that we do a lot as conservatives is we tend to make these decisions and make these ideas and come up with these ideas acting like Democrats will never be back in power again. And so it's kind of silly. But that being said, when it comes to Fulton County, what people don't understand about Fulton County is that as a voter in Georgia, everyone should be upset with what's going on. Fulton County, if you've lived in Georgia for any number of years, Fulton County has a history of slow counts, of miscounts, of problems of counting votes. That is documented, and that goes back some time. That's not a Republican thing. That's Black Democrats who have seen issues in Fulton County for many years, and also DeKalb County. Secondly, Stacey Abrams wanted the ballots because she felt she got cheated in 2018 by the machines. Republicans at that time said that she was crazy. She should have conceded. The machines are fine. It wasn't until 2020 that Republicans felt that there was a problem with the machines because Trump lost Georgia. Remember, we went to bed election night in 2020, Trump was up 300,000+ votes in Georgia. And by the morning, it had gone to a 12,000 vote deficit. And that's because Gwinnett, DeKalb, and Fulton County release their absentee ballot votes, not the tabulated votes, absentee ballot votes. And the thinking back then was, and it still is by many of the election integrity and activists, was that all of these votes came in and they were like 90-10 for Trump. I mean, for a 95-5 for almost Biden versus Trump. And so people saw problems. The same problems that Stacey was suing for statewide, the information from the Secretary of State's office, and they kept placing her on hold and she couldn't get the ballots or the information that she sued for. Why I bring all of this up is, as long as we continue, and it's kind of tied to the Epstein files, what I'm about to say, as long as we continue to look at this issue as right versus left, we, the voters, get screwed over. This issue should really be what happened in 2020. Let's never let it happen again. And by making people think it's all about Trump, you make people forget that they were mad in 2018 after Kemp beat Stacey when she said the exact same things. And now that everyone's on the same board and not liking the machines and not trusting the machines, there's a huge push on the Republican side to go to paper ballots. But I remind people, Cynthia McKinney in 2000 wanted to go to paper ballots, and Republicans called her crazy. And so now everyone's coming to the same conclusion at different times that the machines are hackable. They're, there's problems with them, and so we should do something different. Do I agree that we should do something different with the upcoming elections in 2026 and change to paper ballots now in February? No, because it's going to be too much of a transition. But there were problems. I don't know if the problems amounted to him losing Georgia, but I am all for them getting to the bottom of this. Fulton County held these ballots back for the last 5 years. They could have released them when they were asked to.
Let me jump in here real quick and say this. Definitely, like, obviously, Fulton County, you're here in Georgia, so you're close to it and you have those details. But I do recall the both of you had a dialogue early when we started this show about voting and if there's fraud. And at the time, Shelley, you had some great questions that you, in a sense, challenged Emil with. I'm just kind of bringing that back up on purpose. And at the time, Emil saying, hey, having worked in the system and seen it, been inside of it, obviously can't cover everything, but there hasn't been any type of consistent fraud found in U.S. elections throughout the years, is the conclusion that I feel like y'all came to. I'm not saying Fulton County doesn't have its issues, and I respect the focus on that.
Well, I'm answering the question that you asked. I'm not.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm kind of bringing it to the full question too.
That conversation was totally different than it is now. You asked the question, "What do you think about what happened?" And I'm telling you,
I asked why. Okay, why is he doing it? But I guess you're still giving the answer.
The reason why is, like I said, it shouldn't be a him. That's my point. It shouldn't be a him. It should be, why did Stacey do it?
So what I'm saying is, I think we need to ask these a couple of really hard questions, though, that have been answered by the courts. They've been answered by in technical respects too, and that is, what is the evidence that shows there is any question that these voting machines or the votes themselves are fraudulent? We don't have any evidence of that. What we have is conjecture, and conjecture does not equal evidence. What we need to do is look at what is already proven and say, is there an anomaly in this data? If there's an anomaly in the data, then by all means, let's investigate it.
Well, they had three.
All of the investigations have not shown an anomaly.
Well, that's kind of true and not true. We had 3 audits, 3 recounts in Fulton County, and they came up with 3 final numbers, 3 final tabulations. And so that's the first thing that you would say would be evidence. Now, let me be clear. I'm not all for relitigating 2020, right? I think Republicans should be talking about the future. I think this is an issue with a sizable number of the base in Georgia. I think this is an issue. But I think that when you're talking about the past, you're not talking about what you're going to offer to the voters. And that's always a problem politically. But I also want to point out that when people say, why is Trump doing this? I always want to remind them that Stacey did the same thing after 2018. And many Democrats, particularly national media outlets, said that she did not lose that race. And so let's be
Secretary
honest here.
Kemp, Secretary of State Kemp did not recuse himself as the Secretary of State during that election. So she had a valid complaint that if he had recused himself and had let someone else run the election as Secretary of State, that would have been
Secretary of State. That's my point. Secretary of State in Georgia does not run the election. They don't run the election. Counties run the elections. So that's why the reason why everyone blames Brad Raffensperger is because at the end, when they did the 3 audits and the recounts, Brad Raffensperger, the activists felt, wasn't doing enough to dig deeper to find a fraud. The fraud wasn't with the tabulations. The fraud was with, for instance,
I'm gonna jump in because I want to move
let me say this.
I want to jump in because I want to move us along in the show. Like we got.
I just want to say this. There are 5 million registered voters in Georgia. They sent out 6.9 million absentee ballots. That raises a red flag automatically.
I'm not disagreeing with that. I'm trying to go national with it more so than being stuck in Georgia. But obviously, Georgia is an issue because of the ballot seizure. All right, let's go on to the other issue of this week.
Talk about what came out in these documents and what didn't. In fact, one of your survivors, the people that you represent, was named over 500 times?
That's absolutely correct. 538 times. And what's so baffling is this seems to be sort of the perfect storm between incompetency and an active cover-up. It's both. And it's so mind-boggling because they're withholding documents that they shouldn't be withholding, that the public deserves to see based on attorney-client privilege and some other very vague privileges. But on the other hand, they're showing documents that they shouldn't be showing because they contain unredacted names of survivors. 538 times is an outrageous amount of mistakes to expose a woman who was sexually trafficked by Jeffrey Epstein. They're naming survivors. They're protecting potential predators. And the real issue here is there's just no oversight. And there's been motions for the court, and we're actually filing an amicus brief and some letters to the court on behalf of our clients to demand that a special master be appointed to review all of the materials and decide what should be privileged, what should be produced, what should be redacted, and what shouldn't. Because right now, the public, the survivors, all of us are forced to trust a Department of Justice, Trump's Department of Justice, that has done absolutely nothing to earn our trust.
We'll start with you on this one, Shelley. The Epstein files have finally been released. I'm going to tell you, I still think you're going to owe me $1 because I don't think there'll be real fallout. Again, that's just my thoughts. But Shelley, your thoughts on the Epstein files finally being released? Just your perspective on it, brother.
Me?
Yep. We start with you this time.
About the Epstein files?
Yeah, just with the cut that you just heard. Any thoughts? Obviously, that one lawyer is making his point, but I'm just saying, in general, your thoughts. They finally were released.
Let me tell you again. That's why I said what I was going to say about the election stuff is tied to the Epstein stuff. The problem in our country is we keep making everything about either Trump, even with the Epstein files. Republicans wanted these files dropped a long time ago. I mean, it's one of the things he ran on. He used to always call these people are sick. These elites are sick. When he ran in 2016, he talked about this elite group of people who were taking advantage of the American people, which is one of the reasons why he won the first time. So the idea is that we have always known that these people existed at elite levels, this cabal of elite business politicians, and all of these people existed for a long time. We knew it existed in the music industry. Many, many, many people have talked about it in the music industry. No one has ever pushed them aside and said this is conspiracy theory. When QAnon first started, their whole basis of QAnon was primarily a cabal of pedophiles trafficking in girls and young girls and boys. So this is nothing new. What I'm sickened by is the fact that the media and they built, again, what they've done in an effort to make the issue partisan. They drive a wedge, make it about Trump, and then you don't pay attention to anything else. There are some sick things coming out of these emails. There's over, I think, 500 or 600 references to them getting pizza. When do you know a billionaire to be ordering pizza? And years ago, QAnon had already said that pizza and hot dogs, and these were code words for children. So this is what we need to be focused on, not having a argument about Democrats and Republicans and Trump and Clinton and all of this stuff. We're looking at a disgusting thing being done for years, over decades. And this is what we know about because of these files and these emails. Everyone listening to this right now, I advise you to find Stephen Bannon's leaked interview with Jeffrey Epstein. It's about 2 hours long. The media is pointing it out as to be Stephen Bannon was trying to clean his image up. I'm doing air quotes. But if you watch that interview, the things he talks about, Epstein is talking about politicians don't run anything. We know this, but now it's being made clear to us, and we're still focused on the gossip and who is in a picture, who is doing what. In Europe, they're seeing these Epstein files as the greatest scandal in the history of the British Empire, not the British Empire, the Crown. And in Europe, they're looking at these very seriously. We're looking at it like child gossip on the playground. And that's what, to your question, Montoya, that's what keeps it from being prosecutable, because we're not demanding these people go to jail. What we're doing is looking at it as just another soap opera to keep us busy on social media, as opposed to looking at this as very powerful, influential, rich men, primarily men, were trafficking in young girls. And we don't even know about the boys because all the victims are girls, but we're definitely trafficking in young girls. And that should be what we are only talking about, and getting those people prosecuted.
And what I would offer, Shelley, and I'm turning it over to you, Emil, what I will offer is the reason we, the public, are doing what you're suggesting, what we're doing, which again, I despise it as well. But I think the reason we're doing it, and also the reason I challenged Emil and said there will not be major fallout to Trump or Biden or the presidents in this issue, is because when both sides used it as a fodder to get votes, I felt the reason, just common sense in my mind, the reason that both sides have been able to use it as fodder is because they knew it wasn't anything damning to the degree to anyone. I'm talking about President Trump, Biden, I'm talking about the major players. Because again, I think you're going to owe me $1, Emil. It's not going to be major fallout, because even though this shit is damning, like Shelley is saying, it's not going to be damning to the major players because both sides used it. They couldn't have used it if there was something in there, because both sides are involved as far as Democrats and Republicans. So neither side could have used it if there was something damning to one of the presidents. Both sides used it. Trump used it against Biden, and now then Trump used it against. Like, they went both ways. That's why I've never thought that anything will come out of it. But go ahead, Emil.
Yeah. So first of all, let's go back a little bit. Earlier this month, Representative Ro Khanna, and let me make sure I got my names right, and Representative Massey, one Democrat, one Republican, asked the federal government for a special master to oversee the release of these documents because it was going so slowly from the Justice Department. We know that the Attorney General Pam Bondi has had a very wishy-washy affair with these files. They were on her desk at one time to be released, and they weren't. And finally, Congress had to pass a law, and then she's late on the law, as if she didn't have them in her possession all of the time she's been the Attorney General, and they've been front and center on her docket. So this entire fiasco is just a ruse to protect the powerful. So let's get that out of the way. Second thing is, there is a major unpacking of national security that we are seeing in these files. For instance, it's very clear that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent. He was also a CIA asset, but there is enough evidence in there to make some very ugly conclusions that he was not just doing things because he was an awful human being, but he had a lot of help from at least one state, and I won't name the state. But there's more here than just he said, she said, bad, good, left, right, Republican, Democrat. What we're seeing is that there's a national there's a national compromise of our security. There's a compromise of national security here that goes beyond whether or not, and I feel for every victim, and I want them to get their justice, which is why I will stay front and center in saying somebody's going to pay for this, Montoya, and I'm going to get that.
Now you're not being fair to me, Emil. You always break.
No, and when I say somebody, I'm saying somebody at the very highest levels they're going to pay for this.
Not no somebody. I said
deserve that justice, and I will not.
I'm not.
By saying they're too powerful to remove.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Shelley, I'm in agreement with Shelley. And I agree that, like you said, the Crown in England is taking this more serious. I'm not disagreeing with taking it more serious and people getting their just due. I'm just highlighting that the reason we're treating it the way we're treating it is because both the politicians treated it like that towards us in a political way. And now we're caught up as the American people putting it in as Democrat, Republican. We're caught up in it because that's how they used it. And I'm saying the only reason they could use it is because it wasn't damning to Trump or Biden, those people. You say there's going to be fallout to them. I'm saying there's not going to be any fallout to Trump or Biden because
I'm going to say that somebody who was mentioned 30,000 times so far as counted by several different reputable organizations. You're going to see something come out. I think you're.
Yes, you can't say something to what we're talking about. What I am talking about. You can't say something because I'm talking about.
The last thing I'll say about all of this is that the American people have been inundated with all of this for the last, several years, not just one or two. But the problem we're going to see is that the Justice Department is playing this game with those files. The game is release. Oh, I made a mistake. I got to pull some back. So they're clawing back and putting out, redacting the wrong things. And again, let's remember that Attorney General Pam Bondi has had these documents for a lot longer than this law's been enacted. So it's not about the speed at which they could have been released. She could have done all of this work in good faith from day one because
these documents
desk since then.
Emil, this is the point we're all trying to make. These documents were available under the Biden DOJ. These documents have been out there for many years. It's not Pam Bondi. This is the point I'm trying to make. It's not let's stop politicizing pedophilia by rich and powerful people.
I'm not the one who's redacting the wrong stuff, though, Shelley. Somebody is.
But it doesn't matter who's doing it. Yeah.
Whatever they're redacting, we see what's going on. So the redactions don't bother me because I'm still seeing that rich and powerful rich men were dealing and trafficking in young girls, right? We just had an administration. Listen to this, all right? Let's all agree that there are people out there at higher levels, elite levels of business, politics, and culture and entertainment who are doing these sick things to young kids. Can we agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. We just had an administration where millions of unaccompanied children were let into the country to quote unquote sponsors and bust and sent to all over the country, right? Now, I'm not saying this was done for those purposes, but I'm saying it allowed people of nefarious deeds that we just all agreed to continue their trafficking in young children. Now, if we get away from who did it, who had the paperwork, what side did it, who let in 20 million or millions of undocumented kids, or who's cracking down on the border, if we get rid of all of that rhetoric and we just talk about the issue, that's how we get justice for the victims, and we can prevent other victims from happening. But we've got to get away from this idea that is damaging, not damaging. We know it's damaging. They're about to kick Prince Andrew out of the royal family. And what's sad about it, they got rid of Prince Charlie, whatever his name is, for marrying the chick faster than they got rid of this guy for being a pedophile.
Right.
But the point is that, in Europe, they see this as a massive scandal.
And thank you for that. And I'm just saying this, and we're going to move to the next cut. Emil, I've been clearly talking about the politicization of this thing. You keep bringing it back to really kind of what Shelley's saying, as though I'm not agreeing that there's people that heads should fall. But I'm just saying the way that the politicians got us as Americans getting caught up in the side of it, they played a game with us. That's why I think you're gonna owe me $1, because I'm not saying owe me $1 because nothing happened or there are not high and powerful people whose heads are gonna roll. I'm talking about these politicians' heads are not gonna roll because they know they're not, like Trump can't use it if he's been involved, but people foolishly and silly, and this is me not defending Trump, but I'm saying he used it for the political follow just like the Democrats did. He can't use it if he actually was involved. You can't even use it. I'm just saying, I'm talking about the politicization, don't turn it into I'm arguing that this is okay. I'm going to the next cut.
I'm not going to say
the real reason Trump is breaking the world, because the world that exists cannot support America anymore. This isn't ideology, it's math. The post-1945 system was built when America produced, America manufactured, America exported. Today, America consumes, America borrows, America finances. The old order only works if the center is strong. It isn't. Trump understands something elites don't admit. The US can no longer afford to be the shock absorber of the world. So he's not trying to fix the system, he's trying to crash it on his terms. Every alliance he weakens, every institution he undermines, every trade rule he breaks. That's not madness. That's preemptive abandonment. Because when the system finally fails, and it will, the country still playing by rules will collapse first. Trump wants America to be unpredictable, unanchored, uncommitted. Why? Because predictable empires get bled slowly. Unpredictable ones get paid quickly. This is why he hates multilateralism. Because multilateral systems force the strong to subsidize the weak. This is why he attacks NATO. Because NATO is an insurance policy America can't afford anymore. This is why he weaponizes tariffs. Because trade used to be mutual. Now it's leverage extraction. This is why he treats war zones like balance sheets. Because reconstruction is one of the last remaining profit pools. Here's the part nobody says. Trump isn't destroying the world, he's disconnecting America from the cost of holding it together. And that terrifies everyone, because deep down they know he's exposing a truth. The global order was never moral, it was affordable, and it isn't anymore. So Trump's strategy is simple. Break it fast, cash out leverage, let others carry the rubble. History won't remember him as a lunatic, it will remember him as the man who ended the illusion early. And that's why the world looks like it's burning, because it is.
Shelly, I'm gonna start with you on this clip.
That's what I voted for.
Let me start real quick. Let me just set it up and then you can jump in. And so I'm starting with you because I've seen you in weeks. I follow you on your show, follow you on your page. And sometimes I see you hint at that President Trump is going to be seen as great. And I happen to see that clip after that. And so I was like, let me put this clip on here because I wonder if this is what Shelly is referring to when he says in the aftermath of things that he may be seen as great. Is it some of what we just saw in that cut?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I mean, that I saw that clip a couple weeks ago or about a week ago. Okay. But yeah, absolutely. It's like welfare, right? We have been subsidizing countries all around the globe, not only financially, but also in military aid. And we've also been taking over countries. We've also been going into countries to swing, elections and things like that. And all of that cost us because it's destabilizing. It's, everything else. Look at what they did with Gaza. They put together a peace board or whatever, right? And basically they leveled Gaza. And now there are plans. Jared Kushner showed plans of a rebuilt Gaza. Now, I saw Emil shake his head. I get why he shakes his head. But if you get yourself out of now and look down the line, what more prosperity, what more peace can you bring to an area than to make people prosperous? Look at Libya. As Gaddafi made Libya prosperous and his people were happy, there was no infighting, no civil wars. Yes, he did kill dissidents, but not to any level did he have the dissidents to kill like Syria and other neighboring countries because the people were happy. So if you rebuild Gaza into this place where I can travel to Israel and then visit Palestine or Gaza or the Gaza Strip and have hotels and jobs and everything like that, you're less apt to have people raising children that want to blow themselves up in a marketplace. And that's just simple human nature and logic and history. And so after World War II, we helped rebuild Germany. Germany is now one of the greatest industrial countries in the world right now. And so if what Trump is doing is, like the guy said, it's the bull in a china shop. I can break everything up. If you break everything and just leave the china shop alone, you could do that. But if you break everything up and rebuild a china shop, it may look better and more beautiful than it once did, and generate more profits because you have new product in there. So I think that's what he's saying. That's what I've been saying. I just want him to. My criticism of him has been of late, I want him to focus more on domestic things. Republicans have been running against Obamacare since 2010. It's now 2026, and there still is no replacement. And that's all they've been running on: repeal and replace, and there's still no replacement. Healthcare is going to be a problem for many Americans in this country. I want to see them focus on that. I want to see them focus on domestic issues. But as far as that clip, he's absolutely right.
Emil, your thoughts on that clip?
Yeah, so it's easy to break the international order when you're outside the constitutional order, and that's the problem I have. I don't have a problem with him as president setting policy, although I disagree with the policy, especially the inward focus and the Western, the Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine. I have major problems with that, and I've spoken on that about Venezuela before. So the questions that are raised in this are, should he be breaking the international order? If that is true, he should be breaking the international order because America can't afford it. Then America is probably going to be the worst, the least likely beneficiary of that broken order. We've been the greatest beneficiary of the world order. Yes, we've paid the most, but we've also made the most money. Ours has always been the most thriving economy in the world. It certainly has been the most thriving economy amongst the industrialized nations. So the benefit to that world order has come directly back to this nation. The distribution of that money has not been equal, i.e. the top 1% have gotten most of that largesse, but the nation as a whole has prospered from America maintaining that world order, despite the fact that we paid for it. So when you start putting that picture together that he's breaking the international order, which he is doing very, very quickly and very, very well, in my opinion, you got to ask yourself, if America has benefited financially and economically for the past 50, 60 years from this international order, and he breaks it, how is America going to prosper on the back end of that broken international order? So I'm listening to that and I'm seeing all of the same facts that Shelley sees, but I come up with a different conclusion because my premise starts with America has not been harmed by holding the international order together. I've not liked international politics, the way America's built its international politics. Mind you, if I come from the left, I hate seeing the nation meddle in other nations' affairs. I hate seeing that we can't
I agree with
other nations to get their resources without having to topple their governments. But what I can say is, if you're going to look at the international order, America's been the first and biggest beneficiary of that order for the past 5 or 6 decades.
Let me ask a quick question and go right back to Shelley, because he sounded like he wanted to respond. You said coming from the left, you don't like to see this. I actually, from my perspective as an independent, I feel like typically the right says not to meddle more than the left. That's my perspective as an independent. Tell me, y'all, if I'm hearing it right or seeing it right, or maybe I missed something.
Yes, the right is true. Well, it depends.
Okay.
When you say right, left, I mean, the Republican leaders have been very much interventionists. Republican voters are pretty much, populist isolationists, as a general rule. Okay. Democrats have never really they fought against war, but the people have protested wars, but the politicians have done what they wanted to do. Okay. But I think generally speaking, most of us agree we don't really want to see America going into some foreign land doing nefarious stuff. But what Trump is doing is separating ourselves from what he did in Venezuela. As much as I didn't like it too, Emil's point, I understood it for what it was. We don't want China or Russia in our backyard. But I didn't like the way it was done. It's just like immigration. I voted for deportations, but I didn't vote for the implementation of how it's being implementation of how it's being done.
Right. Got a comment, another comment from Kenny. He says, Trump is a lunatic. People already live in Gaza. This is genocide and theft. This is genocide itself. So called peace, these displacing Palestinians. He said they can't come back. Don't forget that part. So I think that's a response to you highlighting the Kushner's idea of rebuilding Gaza. I actually agree with your concept, Shelley, though, that at the end of the day, prosperity definitely, like you said, Germany has never tried to take over the world again after being built up properly, right? So that, you know,
we were at war with Germany, but see, this guy's got to be context here, and that's the problem that I'm seeing. That the Gaza conflict, which killed at least 70,000 Gazans and maimed another 150,000 or more, there's much more to that than a nation that was aggressive toward its neighbors like Germany was. Germany is not the case study you want to quote when it comes to Gaza. Israel leveled Gaza. It did so because of in response to the October 7th attacks a few years ago. And that response was an overwhelming, disproportionate attack on the civilian population. So when you say that, you're also seeing that there's a bunch of people who are trying to take advantage of a very maimed and injured population who still doesn't have a home, by the way, if they're pushed out of Gaza. You didn't kill them all. They didn't kill them all. So there's still that problem. And now you may have just made another generation of people who are going to be very upset at their home being taken over for commerce. So I don't agree that process is going to work.
I'm sorry. I always thought that wasn't their home. I always thought they were put there by the Israelis.
They gotta live somewhere, Shelley, and kicking them out with bombs is not the solution.
Hold on. The fight always has been from them. That's not their home. Now we're saying they're being pushed from their homes.
They're being pushed from a place they were pushed into. Like how many times are you going to displace them, Shelley?
I don't know, but I don't know. I think you've got to ask the Palestinian PLA. Ask them how many times they were at the table to negotiate and stepped away. You can also ask Israel how many times did you move into take more land from Palestine. That's a region that has been fighting. Hold on, for thousands of years.
I agree, and that's why I say
so here in 2025, we come along and say, look, man, you are wrong for burying these people in rubble. You are wrong for continuing to blow them up because they kept encouraging and moving in on you. This is a complicated history. This is a religious war more than anything else. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to build it back up, and the people are going to move in, and Gazans can come in, Muslims can come in, Jews can come in, because we'll have casinos and hotels and tourism. Now, because for thousands of years, fighting each other has not worked. Right? Moving each other has not worked. Taking over the land has not worked. So let's do something different. We can sit here and argue about what happened last year, but I'm like, I don't want, if I have children, I don't want my grandchildren still arguing about the Middle East being a problem in the world.
Hey, good stuff.
Okay.
Here's a cut from MTG. I know you've been a big fan of her, Shelley. So wanted to get your thoughts on this cut right here.
Roll the clip.
MAGA is, I think people are realizing it was all a lie. It was a big lie for the people. What MAGA is really serving is, in this administration, who they're serving is their big donors, the big donors that donated all the money and continue to donate to the president's PACs and donate to the 250th anniversary, and are donating to the big ballroom. And if they're donating to all these things, those are the people that get the special favors, they get the government contracts, they get the pardons, or somebody they love or one of their friends gets a pardon. And it's the foreign countries that are running the show here. It's the major big corporations and what is best for the world. That's really what MAGA is. That's the results. That's what we're seeing after one full year of MAGA. It's kind of like the Scooby-Doo meme where, you know, they pull the mask off the bad guy. Well, the mask is being pulled off, and Make America Great Again isn't really about America or the American people. It's not about the American people.
All right. I know you're a big fan of MTG, Shelley, and so I'll tell you from a personal perspective, having talked to you well before we were doing this show. I know you used to always say, in a sense, you felt like African Americans specifically were pushing for the empire, and I would always listen to you say that, and I was kind of like, what she's talking about is I always saw this administration as the empire. So in a sense, were a lot of Make America Great Again people duped? Because that's what I feel like MTG is saying, and why even
absolutely that's what she's saying. Absolutely, those are the things that I disagree with. I said before, he'll go down as a great president. He will, but right now I'm mad at things like what she just talked about. Absolutely. In 2016 to 2020, you didn't do these things. You focused on domestic issues. This influx of, I went to the inauguration. I saw all these people there. But this influx of millionaires and stuff like that surrounding him. Howard Lutnick was a next door neighbor of Epstein. He's in these emails. This is what sickened her. And what I like about Marjorie Taylor Greene is that first of all, she stepped down. Because remember, this was not a woman who came up from state rep, state senate, this, and then ran for Congress. This was a business owner, ran for Congress and won. And basically, it's like going to a meat factory and seeing how the sausage is made and never eating sausage again. And that's what she's seeing, and that's what she saw. So I applaud everything that she's doing. I applaud everything that she's saying. The thing that disgusts me, right? The thing that disgusts me is this. People who loved Marjorie Taylor Greene in September hated her in October. And I don't mean disagreement. Like someone can say, hey, I disagree with Marjorie Taylor Greene. No, these people turned on her much like Trump turned on her. And that's one of the problems that I have is this idea that we can't have a disagreement without all of a sudden being accused of some kind of traitorous behavior to the president. I mean, it's nuts. I saw the same thing. And by the way, before anybody says it's a cult, I saw the same thing in 2010 when people started questioning Obama on his foreign policy, and people started saying you turn it on the black man. So when you have personality voting going on, this is what you get. But my point is that I agree with her wholeheartedly. It is disgusting what's going on. And it has basically draining the swamp became the swamp.
Hey, when them billionaires was lining up, by Trump, I feel like you couldn't see it at that time, Shelley, because I feel like even me and Mill was like, man, he was like, these people are doing a good thing. And I'm like, this is the opposite of what you want. Like, it just seemed obvious to me from the beginning.
It was obvious, but we thought, so for instance, Zuckerberg, people like that, right? I saw them siding up to him because they were like, look, I don't want you to do what Biden just did, which is censorship, which is kind of antitrust laws and antitrust investigations with the DOJ and things like that. This is totally different. Billionaires have always been in politics. Let's not get it twisted. What we're seeing here now is more in your face and more obvious. We've always known money ran politics. We always knew the politicians were guided by the money. That's nothing new. Let's not act like this is all new stuff. But this is so in your face, and the run to make money off of it is what she's really talking about, and what I'm talking about is that these people are making billions by being in this position. Because remember, none of these were policy makers; these are all business owners, and so that's why it becomes a major problem.
And I just saw it coming, is kind of what I'm saying. Go ahead, Emil. Your thoughts on what MTG had to say, or Shelley?
I'm going to say, but strangely, I agree with MTG in this one respect. It's rank. So the last time you had a president this openly corrupt was President Ulysses S. Grant. It's just
or Biden.
I wouldn't even say Biden, and I'm not saying he wasn't doing his thing, because they all do. I'm saying this openly corrupt, because you have the cryptocurrency and all the things that come from that. You have the ballroom and all the things that come from that. You have the inaugural committee and all the things that come from that. You have the 250th commission and all the things that come from that. You start seeing this giant open pattern of pay to play. You see this giant open pattern of foreign governments paying to play. You see this giant open pattern of people in prison paying to play. Every single time you see an opportunity for this president to make money, he's doing it. So yeah, I'm not saying, and Shelley is 100% right. Money, big money's always been in our American politics. We know this. We know that there's been corruption. We know this. We can go back to the Carter administration with Abscam. We've known this stuff, we've seen it before. So the question we need to be asking is, what's the benefit to the people for all of this corruption? And right now, you're not seeing any of it. And I'm not saying that it's right. I wish we were able to police ourselves much more effectively. But in the absence of that policing, we need to see some benefit. And this is what Shelley said that I agree with. You're just not seeing anything trickle down to the average person. Jobs aren't going up. Wages aren't going up nearly as fast for the bottom 25% as the top 1%. You're not seeing the things that go into making an economy strong and stable, maintaining or getting better. You're seeing a top-heavy economy getting more top and heavier. And that's going to be a big problem for this nation.
And I'm just going to go ahead, Shelley. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to say Montoya played the clip, but that's it. When Marjorie Taylor Greene resigned, that's exactly what she was saying, that there was too much of a focus on foreign policy and not enough focus on domestic issues. To your point about that what they call a K economy.
And so one little last question. I'm gonna play this clip because I think we're gonna get to I think something that here is a serious issue. I just think that you, Shelley, and some of the MAGA and the MTGs missed that it was gonna be like this, and I felt like it was gonna be like this from the very beginning. I feel like this was lined up. I'm like, why are we surprised that it was gonna be to this degree? Because I thought that's exactly what was coming with this particular administration. Did you believe that it wouldn't be this with this administration, Shelley?
Did I believe? No, I it's the same with every administration. What I'm talking about and what she's talking about is just the blatancy and the obviousness of it, that it's so blatant. In other words, it's almost like this administration says, look, everyone else does it. Everyone knows they do it. So we're just going to do it too, but we're just not going to hide it. That's all. Yeah. That's all she and I are both saying.
Y'all got duped by that they would do it to this degree.
And what she's saying is that domestically, remember who voted for Trump? Working class, rural people. And so what she's talking about is that those people are not having their needs focused on, that Trump and others are focused on the needs of these billionaire classes. Right. That has never really been any different than any other administrations.
I'm saying at one point you thought that this administration was going to be different. Like that was what you were pushing. Like
I thought they would do it. I had nothing else to go on but what they did in 2016 and 2020, which is focus on domestic issues, focus on middle class issues, focus on rural issues. What she's saying, what I'm saying, has been about flip. Now, I mean, that I can't be blamed for not seeing that, because I mean,
I think it was obvious. That's what I'm saying. That's what I've been saying all the time. I'm like, how did we
all could see it? All of us outside of that could see it.
Stevie
was right there.
Oh,
okay.
That's what I'm saying.
Well,
I guess it was right there in front of us. I never doubted that. When he started the World Financial Group, or whatever that thing is that he does for crypto, we saw it from that point of view, and that was before the election. I'm like, nah, man, nah.
That was in October of a November election. The crypto right. thing, but see, that's what I'm saying. So let's hear. Be careful, because she's saying one thing. That what you just brought up is you taking advantage of a major voter donor group in crypto and being part of that. I have no problems with that. You
don't have a problem with a president profiting off of him for himself?
Listen,
see, that's a problem for me.
Let me tell you why. One, let me tell you why. I don't have a problem with it because every single last one of them have. The difference here is this guy actually owned businesses before he got there. So I have no problems with your cryptocurrency business. What I do have a problem with, here's what I do have a problem with. I do have a problem with you with Saudi Arabia giving you $500 million, investing 41% into world finance, whatever it's called, and then them being allowed to buy chips, high-end AI chips every year, because now that's a policy decision. I do have a problem with that. But you making money, I don't mind you making money.
It's all intertwined, though, Shelley. You can't separate them. That's the problem.
He
makes policy decisions based entirely on the profit he makes off of those decisions.
And that's what I'm trying to say is, for the first time in our lives, we've always known those decisions have been made that way. You, Emil, have been in Democrat politics for many years. You know how those decisions are made. If it's a $2,500 donation to a state rep to get a contract for the highway patrol, it's the same thing.
For real.
No, I'm saying it's the same thing. It's the same thing.
I don't think so. If
nobody goes into
the difference
politics
is in degree, the degree matters then.
That's what I'm saying. And we agree. We agree on that. I'm saying it's just blatant now. That's all I'm saying. It's just in your face, blatant. Everybody can see it. That's it. Everybody can see it. It's no different than before they kept it under wraps. Biden was in office for 50 years. This guy made millions, tens of millions of dollars being a U.S. senator. I mean, it's been documented. Books have been written about it. And I'm not saying one is right and one is wrong.
This guy was going to do something different.
$3.3 billion in 1 year.
What I'm trying to understand is, how does reading the statute to give the president broad discretion, which you've said many times, with respect to his removability of these governors, how does that further the aims of the statute?
It directly furthers the aim of protecting them for removal for policy disagreement, which would be the key protection.
No, but you've conceded that the aim is actually broader. The aim is to ensure that this institution is not being pressured by the executive branch, by the president, with respect to its determinations, that people can't just be fired because the president wants them to. And so what I'm now asking is, if we read for cause to ultimately reduce to the president can pick some fact that has nothing to do with their actual tenure in office, something that happened way before, and use that and say that's cause and it's not reviewable and he doesn't have to show any evidence and doesn't have to give the person a hearing. Basically, the president is just making the determination that Congress apparently didn't want him to have the power to make because they put for cause in the statute. So how do you reconcile your vision of presidential discretion with a statute that was clearly designed to limit the president's discretion in this regard?
It was designed to limit the president's discretion just as far as the plain text of the statute goes. The statute was a hard-fought compromise between two influential and insistent camps, as Justice Alito recently wrote. One of them thought there should be complete presidential control of the Federal Reserve. The other thought it should essentially be a private entity. They met in the middle with a removal standard that protects governors from removal.
But it only protects them insofar as the president's determination about cause is reviewable and based on actual evidence that has been established. It doesn't protect them if the president can just make it up.
Emil, what are we looking at there?
So here's the issue is very simple. Can the president remove a governor from the Federal Reserve Board for any reason the president chooses? The way the law is written says that there has to be a legitimate cause, something that can compromise their ethics, their morals, their standards. And what the president has done is said, I'm going to create some circumstances. With one board governor, he tried to say that she had lied on one of her forms for her house. That was proven untrue, but he tried to use that allegation to get her removed. And then the Fed chairman, he's trying to get under how the Fed has redone these two buildings, which is a multi-billion-dollar renovation of two historical buildings that are being done in the same style that they were originally produced in. And he's saying that is now somehow some problem even though he had visited the site, even though he had been briefed on that, and they've been extremely transparent as far as what they're doing to those two buildings to restore them back to their former glory. The point here is that the president does not have the authority to remove or replace a governor from the Federal Reserve Board without a significant cause that compromises their morals, their ethics, their ability to perform as a governor on that board. And the reason why he's doing this is because he wants those interest rates lowered. He wants them much lower than they are now. And the board has not responded to his desire to goose the economy using lower interest rates. That problem persists because the board has been very clear. They're doing what they've been chartered to do, which is look at two things very consistently. That is inflation and unemployment. And they use the rate that they set as a way to help manage. A little bit of inflation is a good thing. We don't want too much. A little bit of unemployment is a good thing. We don't want too much. And that's where they are trying to always find that sweet spot to keep the economy growing at a very even clip.
Sally, is this situation a concern to you from your perspective?
Well, it's a concern to me because nobody wants politicians making decisions about the Fed. That's it. First of all, the real idea, many of us want to get rid of the Fed altogether. That has been an ongoing conservative point of view for many years, and a libertarian point of view for many years, and a moderate Democrat view for many years. But I'm totally against the president making any decisions on who's on the Fed board. I think, because what happens is like I said, many Republicans fall into the trap of talking about doing things when a Republican gets in office, or a Republican president, particularly in Trump's case, not recognizing that a Democrat's going to win eventually. And so it's these kind of major shifts and changes in institutions are not really smart, because you're not there forever. And so that's the problem I have. But it's 11 o'clock. I got to get on to another meeting. I got to go.
Thank you for
I'll
the time,
talk to y'all.
Good stuff.
Peace, Shelly. Always good to see you, brother.
Good stuff. Thank you for your time, brother. So I'm going to keep you for one more cut, if you will, Emil. And this is just, our brother Leo, who will hopefully be on with us next week. You and him both have talked about having robust parties to be able to administrate our republic properly, right? Versus, and challenge as a people not to be on a team to the extent that we don't have robust challenge. And so I saw this clip kind of picking on your boy, Cory Booker. I know you're not a huge fan of him, but I know you said you like some of his policies. And I thought it would be a dialogue to just kind of say, hey, this is a sarcastic view of Cory Booker, but I would also offer that we have too many politicians that are like this. And that's the setup I'll give you. And we'll close with this clip today.
People are always asking me, how is it that Cory Booker appears like such a fighter without actually fighting for anything? That's where I come in.
Kobo, my dude, did you see the new polling? I know. People think you're really doing something.
I knew that Cory was a generational talent back in 2017 when he made history by testifying against Jeff Sessions during his confirmation hearing for Attorney General. And then 2 days later, he voted against importing cheap prescription drugs from Canada. It was probably to appease his pharma donors. I had never seen anyone virtue signal so gracefully, so effortlessly. I was like, I have to work with this guy. You probably saw Cory's most recent Senate speech where he just laid into Trump and the Democrats.
It's time for Democrats to have a backbone. It's time for us to fight. It's time for us to draw lines.
Seeing that, you probably never guessed that Cory actually voted to confirm a handful of Trump's cabinet nominees like Scott Bessent and Marco Rubio, and he was the only Democrat to vote to confirm Charles Kushner as ambassador to France. No one does it like Cory. Oh, I mean, the 25-hour floor speech, that was huge for us. Not only did he break the record previously held by Strom Thurmond, not only did he speak out against Trump's authoritarian agenda, not only did he show Democratic voters that he is ready to fight, actually, that is only what he did. And that's the point. Just from that floor speech, we raised $10 million in donations, and we got an entire book deal without having to lift a finger. No legislation passed, no procedural pushback, no substantive wins of any kind. That's how we do it. I'm not going to lie, the Israel stuff has been really tough on Cory. I mean, obviously it's been tougher on Palestinians in Gaza, but I think Cory is a close second. Cory and Netanyahu are buddies. Can you blame Cory for wanting to help out his buddy who was indicted by the International Criminal Court for war crimes? Turns out the answer is yes, because a lot of people are pissed.
No one cares how Andy Kim voted on the weapons package, all right? Everyone still thinks that Bob Menendez is the other senator from New Jersey. Yeah, I miss Bob too. I mean, at one point, Corey called me up and he said, I'm seeing these images coming out of Gaza. Maybe it's time for us to rethink our unwavering support of Israel. And then I reminded him we already took the AIPAC money, so we just stopped talking about it. Ugh, the Zohran Mamdani endorsement. Look, I told Corey to just say, I have learned a long time ago, let New York politics be New York politics. And no one's going to point out that you have historically been very involved in New York politics. Oh, they did point it out. When you have a fresh, exciting, up-and-coming politician like Zohran come along who is energizing the base and activating new voters, we as Democrats need to support a candidate like that. Unless they are challenging our donors or critical of Israel, in which case we need to bury them. People are already asking if Corey's gearing up for a 2028 presidential run, and I keep telling them all Corey cares about right now is saying he will defend democracy, saying he will stop Donald Trump, saying he will fight in the great state of Israel, I mean, New Jersey. But yeah, I am already working on the campaign poster.
Damning.
Nothing.
And it's what we as the people face often. And I'll say particularly to the Democratic Party, there are some people who are about real action, but the party still seems to lean on people like Cory Booker. Your thoughts, and we'll close out the show.
He's been a wonderful mouthpiece, but as far as living out the values he tells us,
should we even call it a wonderful mouthpiece?
I mean, look, I watched part of that 25-hour speech. It was great. It was fantastic.
But I'm saying, I can't even say that because
I got nothing because he's not doing in the work of the Senate, which is one of the great deliberative bodies in all of modern history around the world. He has had an opportunity to be a thorn in so many different ways, and he's chosen not.
But he hasn't been an opportunity. I mean, I'm not dialoguing, but what I'm saying is he's playing us and a lot of politicians. So he doesn't have an opportunity because he knows he's playing us.
What I'm saying is, from his position, he functionally has the ability to do a lot more to slow down this administration if he wanted to. He is not motivated to use those tools he has access to. And why is that? Because from what I've observed, he's very much engaged in the opportunity versus the show versus the result. The results could be different, and he could be a leader in those results because he himself has said, let's show some backbone.
I don't care
when it comes time to it.
I don't care nothing about what he says. And I would say to our watchers of being politically conscious, here's the thing that I think we don't think about with the power of our vote. Because we're on teams, we're not willing to vote out incumbents or sometimes pull the lever for the other side just to get people like him out. So we'll still fall for the rhetoric and keep putting him in position. And to me, that's the type of cancer that require us as conscious voters to be willing to, in that particular election, vote him out by voting for the other side.
Or vote him out in the primary.
So you say that, but just be honest about what happens when you have incumbents like that. When you have incumbents like that, they typically don't have primaries. Like the preference always is, we'll vote them out in the primary. But I'm here in Georgia in a certain area where there's no one running against the incumbent quite often. So I am willing to, when I see that type of action, I vote for again, I'm an independent, so it's easy for me. But I'm saying the people that are on a side, they're not willing to understand the power of your vote is actually voting out someone who gives you nothing but rhetoric throughout. And you keep hoping that the rhetoric is going to prove true. It will not. And I hate we're missing Shelley on this part, but even when Shelley says, a few weeks ago when he says, I want to be more critical of my side versus the people that I did not vote for. While I applaud him for that, I still wanted to, like I'm saying right now, I wanted to ask him specifically, well, wouldn't that sometimes require for you to pull the lever for the other side? Because you can't hold them accountable if you're going to put them back in office.
100%. And with that, I agree.
Good stuff. All right. Thank you for the show, brother.
All right, man. Always good. And peace to you and the rest of our viewers. Thank y'all for a lively comment section.
Absolutely. Y'all were in it today. The numbers are going up, man. Appreciate y'all. Make sure y'all subscribe to the show. We'll see we pop up, not at the same time every week. So make sure you subscribe so that when we pop up, you can catch the show. If you're tired of the propaganda, listen to us.